Hi, everybody. Just like to welcome you to my new course here that I'll be doing the next few months. Recordings and some live classes just on a brief, very brief introduction to Tibetan Buddhist Kriya Tantra or Action Tantra in the Gelug or Ganden tradition, which is the tradition that I've been sort of instructed in or trained in. So we've done just in terms of my videos, a lot of different videos on sutric topics. And I sort of taught a lot of that with the aim towards really presenting sort of one of the main emphasis, or perhaps the main emphasis in the Gelugpa tradition, the training of understanding emptiness in terms of dependent origination, or the two truths that best was saying is the unity of karma and emptiness. And this, of course, ends up building the bridge practice bridge and sort of theory bridge, you could say, to our practice of Buddhist Tantra. And so we've done a lot of classes in that. And then I've done two intro classes on sort of theories of Tantra, sort of what we're doing with Tantra, when I looked at Lama Yeshe's book on Tantra, as well as Rob Priest's book on psychology of Buddhist Tantra, which, of course, you can see all of this material, the sutra stuff and the Tantra stuff on the channel here, my channel. So I'd like to start now with doing classes now on Action Tantra or Kriya Tantra. So there's a lot of material out there. I'm only going to be doing it in the context of Tibetan Buddhism, obviously not other traditions that you find in China, or let's say Shingon or Tendai in Japan. And in terms of Tibetan Buddhism, I'm only going to be addressing it from the standpoint of what I've known, what I've been trained in over 30 years, which is in the Gelug tradition. Of course, there's different ways of presenting this material in the Kagyu, Nyingma, and Sakya tradition. I think in Kriya Tantra, I would assume there's a lot of overlap, and it's probably similar. But I don't want to speak to those other lineages because I just don't know enough about them. And coming from an academic background like I do, doing a master's in Western philosophy, I think it's always important to talk about what you understand and what you know and what you've been trained in, and not to go out on a limb and theorize about other things that you don't know or understand or haven't been trained in, because number one, you'll probably get it wrong, and number two, even if you don't get it wrong, there'll be enough confusions there that you'll confuse your audience and set them on the wrong path, and then you're wasting their time. They have to kind of get back onto the right path, and they've been diverted because of your own lack of skill of ignorance. So I'd like to focus just on that, sort of on that training that I've received in Kriya Tantra. So I'd like to give a tiny bit of a background here. Why this is a little bit of a pet project for me and why I like it is my wife Christine and I, and as long as some other friends, our friends Bill and Chi and Carolyn, studied extensively and deeply with our dear friend and teacher David Gonzalez, Venerable Losang Sering, who sort of now, subsequent to his death, his sort of posthumous reputation is quite large now in the Tibetan Buddhist world because of his translation of a number of great books in the Gelugpa tradition on Tantra and so forth, a lot of different commentaries that he did. We were around when he was doing these translations. He probably put out about 12 books. First on Decheling Press, which is, you got his little crest there, Decheling Press, and then later they've been taken up because of some of his ex-students or people that knew him after he passed away. Wisdom Publications is publishing his work, which is great. I'd recommend getting all of his stuff, especially if you have the empowerments of commentary to the practices he discusses in those books. But he passed away in the fall of 2014, and I think about him all the time, and he still continues to guide me in addition to my main root Gelug teachers. But I think his example as sort of a hidden yogi, sort of almost like one of the 84 Mahasiddhas, will always stay with me, and in some ways might be one of my biggest influences because he was a Western guy, Caucasian guy, just a few years older than me, kind of similar upbringing, growing up in Seattle and Washington State, and we had a lot in common. And so he's able to show he wasn't a Tibetan monk or some lama or tulku. He was just like a guy like anybody that just decided to do this and was so devoted. And we always talk about, it's still sort of a huge inspiration. He was full-time yogi, and so he gave up working full-time maybe in the late 1990s. And when we met him in 2001, he had this regime that was just be hard-pressed to find even a lot of monks and nuns that were able to do this, to be honest. But he would get up at 6 in the morning and practice straight till about 1 in the afternoon, 12:30, 1 in the afternoon, straight. And then later after dinner, he did a little bit more practice before going to bed. So in the afternoon, we would see him and spend time with him, and he would teach us. We used to go down almost every month for years, from 2001, 2002 to his death in 2014. He then at that, I can't remember when he started, the late 2000s, like maybe 2008 or 9. You'd have to look at his books. He started doing all the translations, especially the last years of his life when he took ordination and was dying from liver cancer. He didn't have time really to socialize much. We'd go over and spend a little bit of time with him. And I used to talk to him on the phone and get instruction that way. But he was just trying to get all these books done before he passed away from cancer, which he did. So why this is important is that he taught us a course. There's about 5 of us that would just sit around his kitchen table. Nicholas Breeze is another famous shamanic practitioner out of the UK that I like very much. He runs Sacred Hoop magazine, and his instruction, he calls it, was a kitchen sink instruction, where it's basically just people come over to his place in the UK and sit around in the kitchen, and he teaches them. And that's kind of how I've always done it. I just like teaching people informally, just like that, around the kitchen sink, or at Starbucks or anything else, not sitting on a throne or anything formal. I love just doing one-on-one and just spending time with people and discussing things that way. So David was like that. We would sit around his kitchen table, which is sort of in the living room, and he would have all the Tibetan texts piled and just do this. And so he gave us an amazing instruction of the NgaRim Chenmo. So of course the 2 great books Je Tsongkhapa wrote are NgaRim Chenmo, that everyone's very sort of familiar with, all the sutra teachings. But he also taught the 4 classes of Tantra in the NgaRim Chenmo. And my only criticism of Western scholars and everything else is they don't have a 1 edition. Maybe they're coming out with that. I sure hope they do. But 1 sort of edition book with the different volumes. Instead, they're sort of separated and they have different titles, and maybe they're not organized as properly as NgaRim Chenmo is. And I hope that changes in the future. So he went through that using a text commentary from Je Tsongkhapa from Institute Lama Tsongkhapa in Italy, the FMT Center. I have it, if you can believe it, on CD somewhere, and I printed it out. We went through that commentary, and then we went through the texts that have been translated. Jeffrey Hopkins and so on, so Dalai Lama put them out. So that's what I like to use as the text for this course. And so the ones I like to use, which is Losang Saringer David put out this book very much that you should still be able to get online, which is called The Blissful Ascent to Swift Enlightenment, A Guide to the 4 Classes of Tantra by Deity Press. This is an original copy. They might have a different cover now if you look at online, maybe on the Wisdom publications or so forth. It's very, very good. Great introduction. The other one, of course, I put out years ago by Geshe Kelsang Gyatso Rinpoche, which is Tantric Grounds and Paths. To be honest, they're very similar. Either one would work. I'm always going to promote David's book because he's my teacher and friend. He's no longer with us, but nevertheless, in the Pure Land, he'd be happy if everyone was reading his book. So I like this very much. And then, of course, the main text we will be using. And there's another one. I mean, there's different texts that are coming out. There was one we used at Zuriling Temple to study maybe about 15 years ago. I can't remember. It's by that great Geshe at there's a Jamyang Center in London, the PMT Center. He did a whole series of books on Sutra and Tantra, and I can't remember the name of it, but he's got one too. He's a really great Lama, and it's a very clear book with a great commentary. They're all kind of similar, right? But this is the one, and it's been republished recently. I saw it came out. I can't remember if I was looking on, but the one it's called Great Exposition of Secret Mantra, which is NgaRim Chenmo, Je Tsongkhapa's book, Volume 2, and this is the cover now with Je Tsongkhapa on it, so you might have seen it at a bookstore or so forth. But I have the original copy here, the old one here. I myself am curious. This is 1981. Can you believe it? I was a little boy still. So this is the copy that we always use till they put the new one out. And so it's great. Has all the mudras and rituals explained in this. So this is sort of the main one that we're going to use. So what I'd like to sort of pass along here, just in terms, this is an introduction. So again, you would have to have a teacher, a real Gelugpa Lama, or root teacher. Have to study this, study with them one-on-one or in a group. And then, of course, you'd have to do all your sutric studies. It would be great if you did your Nundra for preliminary practices. I'm just giving the traditional line here. And then you have to receive a Kriya Tantra Empowerment. So technically, the old days, that would be a Wangchen or full Kriya Tantra Wang with a Jainong on the second day. Nowadays, I think most people just give the Blessing the Body, Speech, and Mind Empowerment, which is called a Jainong of a Kriya Tantra Deity, Action Tantra Deity. Then you have to receive a commentary on that. So just don't swing into some Lama you don't know, get the empowerment, leave and never see anybody or that teacher, that community again. Technically, if there is a day of commentary afterwards or sort of classes on the practice, you should, the old days, this was considered getting the full initiation, is getting the empowerment and the commentary. So this would be the basis for doing this. So I'm not going to be giving, to be honest, I will refer to this book and show everyone where to do it, but in terms of the rituals, I only briefly described some of them. All the mantras and mudras and magic, I can't, just my own, I know this is all online on the internet now, but I just feel for myself I'm not going to do that. I hate to be disappointing, anticlimactic here, and people think, well, why am I going to sit here and listen to you, idiot, if you're not going to give me the stuff I've come here for, the magic. But again, all you got to do is I'll explain everything. You just got to get this book and then look yourself. I just don't want to put everything online. This is considered what they call secret mantra, and I really, really respect that. I don't want to give these secrets or magic away, a way of sort of watering down or disrespecting my teachers and the lineage. I certainly don't want to have nightmares of bikinis throwing lightning bolts at me and punishing me, or Dharma protectors like Mahakala chasing me around, or Kalarupa chasing me around, mad at me for putting all this on YouTube. So I have to cover my ass that way, my own savaya and my own vows and my own well-being, so to speak, spiritual well-being. But nonetheless, what you need to do is, it might not sound like much, but going through the sadhana and just explaining how it works and the background of what Kriya Tantra is extremely helpful. So then when you get the text and get the sadhanas and you've had the empowerment commentary, you're ready to go. So why this is backing up a little bit, why this was important to me is David or Losing Sering spent a long time going over Kriya Tantra, all the rituals, all the protocols, and how to do the traditional way of doing Kriya Tantra, which at the time, I don't know now, but I haven't seen evidence to the contrary. It might be out there, and I can, please, I stand corrected if anyone wants to correct me with factual evidence. But this is a tradition that's dying out in the world, at least in the Gelugpa tradition. I don't know about other traditions. Now, I'm sure in Tantric College, and I'm sure there's probably monks and nuns doing this somewhere, maybe in Tibet or Nepal or something like that. But in terms of how it's usually practiced, particularly in the West, people don't do Kriya Tantra the way, I don't say it's supposed to be done, but let's say the traditional way. So why that's important to me, David spent all the time going over the very orthodox, traditional, very medieval, you could say, way of doing Kriya Tantra, because the idea is that Kriya Tantra or Action Tantra is about doing actions or rituals, magical rituals, that if you do them properly, you follow the recipe, you get a result, right? So in other words, as I like to say, I've gone in Bangkok to my Thai cooking class with locals, and they show me how to do traditional pad Thai noodles. And then at the end of it, I do my cooking class. I've got friends that do this on the Bangkok layovers. Ta-da! I get the traditional, maybe it doesn't taste as good as my teachers, but I get the traditional dish of Kriya Tantra. However, if I'm just doing it on my own, watching TikTok videos, not saying that that's bad, but if I'm not doing it traditionally, I decide that I really like chocolate chips in that, and I put ginseng in, a bunch of other stuff, and whatever. I serve it with a cheeseburger on the side and say, voila, this is my pad Thai. People coming over, especially Thai people, are like, man, I've never had pad Thai with chocolate chips before. This is really, really bad. Or you've overcooked the noodles or so forth. With Kriya Tantra, it's the same thing. Is when I teach this to people, even friends who have done it, everyone gets, oh, it's so stressful, I can't do it. I'm like, okay, number one, you don't have to do it if you don't want. But let's say you do want to do it and you're serious about, What will happen is if you follow with Kriya Tantra, if you follow the rituals, do all the orthodox magic, at the end of especially a permission retreat or Leirung retreat, which is how you should do it, something will happen. Some magic will happen. In other words, if you're doing medicine Buddha, some healing will happen for yourself, healing for others, or you'll be able to do healing for others. Let's say you do Green Tara, the Great Liberator. You'll have some kind of obstacle or something clear. You'll go over you'll jump like the horse in steeplechase. You'll go over an obstacle, and you're like, well, that cleared. That's amazing. Manjushri, all of a sudden, I have clarity and intelligence and wisdom. It's like, I get it. I understand that Buddhist concept. I can read Buddhist books now. I get it. My teacher told me this. It's super clear. Vajrapani, I have spiritual power. I have all this energy, all this chi when I do things. When I do a puja, it works. When I do my acupuncture needling, oh my goodness, the clients get better super fast. It's like, that's amazing. So why that's good is that it produces faith. It produces faith. But you end up saying, wow, this Buddhist Tantra stuff really does work. It's not Star Wars Buddhism. It's not like when I read the life stories of all these saints and Mahasiddhas, like Milarepa or Master Labdra or Yeshi Sogyo or whatever. It's all kind of like anime, cartoon, Star Wars, Marvel comic stuff, like folklore, mythology, kind of like whatever, Thor battling the Fenris wolf or something, where it's, haha, we know it's Jungian and archetype and symbol, but we don't really believe it. You see that if you do it properly and things happen, it's like, wow, it really does work. And now I want to do more of it. I have so much faith. I want to go and do more and more practice, more and more retreat. And you start to say by analogy, wow, if Kriya Tantra works, then the other three classes work. Charya works, Yoga Tantra works, and most of all, Anuttara Yoga will work. And Tantric Mahamudra, or let's say if you're doing Dzogchen or other kinds of higher practices, you'll have faith in that. And then you should even have faith in other lineages. And you say, wow, this works for me. It's super awesome. When I look at everyone in the Nyingma tradition doing stuff, I know it works for them in the way that the map that they're using. I go, like I do, to Koyasan and see all the Yoga Tantra and even the Kriya Tantra that they do, more Japanese style. And I start to say, hey, I know this stuff is real because it's real for me. It worked for me. My medicine Buddha or Green Tar retreat worked. So when I go and do fire puja with the monks here, I can feel it. I know this. I have total faith. I have faith in Buddhist Tantra. I have faith in the Buddha and these teachings. It's not just magic. It's not just cultural. It's not just something that functions completely symbolic that you can study as an academic, but you don't really believe it. It's something real that I can really pin everything on and really embody and choose to make my life. So I always quote, my friend had these for their healing school like 25 years ago. They had in Toronto some Cree elders come in, First Nations healers, and I always quote this. I'm getting old and I'm using the same stories all the time. But people said, oh my goodness, they did all these ceremonies. Can you teach us these ceremonies? And they said no. And they're like, what are you talking about? Well, you're such a jerk. And these elders said, look, it's not like we can't teach these ceremonies to you. It's not that we don't want to teach these ceremonies to you. But kind of like Kriya Tantra, it's not going to work if you don't do it properly. And what they said is that being Kriya, being like a shaman or a healer this way, is a quote way of life. In other words, you got to do it every day. It's, training for the Ironman or becoming a really great Mandarin speaker, doing all your Mandarin lessons every day. You have to make it your life. You have to live it. It's a life. And that's why these ceremonies work. So Kriya Tantra, we've talked about in our little introductory Tantra courses, you end up, it shows you all these different yogas or techniques or arts of life that you can do to become a real Kriya Tantra practitioner and transform your life into really a quote series, if I can use George Bataille's terms, series of sacred sacrificial gestures. Right? Sacrifice being the eagle that's being sacrificed, you're being sort of flowing into the great cosmic flow of oneness by doing all these things. So that's the course I'd like to teach, and I'll do just sort of a few classes right now as recordings, just giving just a little bit of a background to Kriya Tantra, and then we will go right into a lot of the rituals and the sadhana and stuff. Okay, so welcome to this course, and hope to see you again soon.